And this is indeed Talk the Talk. I'm Bill Newman. Buzz Eisenberg is away, and we would like some walk-up music for our Northampton Poets Laureate. Welcome to NPR, Northampton Poetry Radio, with erstwhile Poets Laureate Rich Michelson and Martine Espada. Let me turn the microphone over to one Poet Laureate, one Rich Michelson.
Hi, everyone. Well, it's funny, that music follows me and Martine wherever we go in town. We walk down the street and people just play that music.
I thought they hummed it to you, Rich. What do you mean they play it?
Yeah, so, it's one of the things about living in a small town. So, Martine, welcome once again to Northampton Poetry Radio. I think you got the award for the most guests. And
another award from Martine Espada, who has had just an avalanche of awards, particularly in the past few years. Really.
Well, on his resume, it says awards #1 appears on Northampton Poetry Radio. That's followed by the National Book Award, which is followed by the Ruth Lilly Prize, the Shelley Memorial Prize, the Robert Creeley Award, Academy of American Poets Fellowship, Penn Revron Fellowship.
Rich, we only have 15 minutes for the segment.
#1. Martine is reading, put this on your calendar, this Saturday, the Lava Center in Greenfield at 7 to 9 p.m. That's the Lava Center, 324 Main Street in Greenfield. It is a fundraiser for the community art space, and Martine will be reading with Michi Serrano, who will be leading off, an acclaimed Puerto Rican poet, activist, and organizer. And then Martine will step to the mic. Tickets are accessible, $10, and that will go towards supporting the Lava Center. So, Martine, let's say hi again. It's good to see you on screen. And
hi again.
It's been such a pleasure to be reading with you over these last couple of months, to see Floaters just take off. Let's start right off with a poem.
And Floaters is?
Floaters is the name of his National Book Award-winning poetry collection, one of the most important collections this country has ever seen. I mean, I say that seriously. It is an amazing book. If it is not in your collection, please go out and buy it now, because you will be moved, amazed, you'll laugh, you'll cry. I mean, this is really an important book of American poetry.
And for those of our listeners who haven't heard you read from it before, Martine, Floaters refers to what?
Floaters is the name assigned by certain members of the Border Patrol to those who have drowned crossing over.
Okay,
That's
so
where it comes from.
It's an incredible poem. Let's read something from the book. Or actually, did you want to read something new?
Yeah, I'm a poet, so I'm stubborn, which means I'm going to read something new after that big build-up.
Okay.
We can do more for build-up. This is at the Lava Center, which is a totally cool community space, and it's beautiful, and it will be a terrific reading, and I'm so glad you're there, Martine.
Well, thank you. I agree. I would like to read something new. I am well on my way into the writing of the next book, of course. So you know my wife, Lauren.
Also
Lauren,
an incredible poet, we should say, and a young adult novelist.
Yes. Lauren taught adult literacy in Paterson, New Jersey at a drug and alcohol rehab facility. She is the tutor in the following poem, new poem, which is simply called Gonzo. Everybody knew Gonzo, his cigarette and cologne, his gold crucifix, the white t-shirt he wore to every meeting. They leaned closer to listen whenever he spoke in the circle at the rehab center, some with eyes shut, seeing his confessions of addiction's demons and sobriety's angels at war. No one knew Gonzo signed his name with an X. The tutor at the rehab center held up flashcards and sounded out the letters A, B, C. There was no alphabet song in Gonzo's head, no teacher at the blackboard. He said the letters one by one. At the letter S, he stopped. The tutor studied Gonzo's nose, long but not as long as the nose of the Muppet with the same name. S, she said again. Gonzo had no front teeth, no place for his tongue to go. He puffed and sprayed, a man unable to navigate the river of his own name, Gonzales. He hid his face in his hands, unlettered cards in his head, as if the tutor could not see him now. A sob surged through him, a beast chained to the rock of his ribs for 50 years, since the days the roosters woke him up for school in Puerto Rico. He wiped his face clean. Gonzo was clean. Clean fingernails, clean shaven, clean white shirt. The tutor waited, thinking. He doesn't know his letters, but he knows every street in Patterson by name. She squeezed Gonzo's wrist, so his eyes met hers. She said, "You are intelligent." She held up the next flashcard. She said, "Say T."
Martin Espada will be reading from his book Floaters, a National Book Award winner, and new poems Saturday at the Lava Arts Center in Greenfield from 7 to 9 p.m. That's 324 Main Street in Greenfield. This is a benefit to help support Lava's spoken and written word programming. It is fully accessible location. Martine, that was an absolutely beautiful and moving poem. I think you know I have been at every one of your readings. I can hear your poems 10, 15 times. I get something new out of it every time. And this is the first time I've heard that poem. And it is just absolutely incredible.
I have a question for you, Martine. I view you, and you may disagree with this, but I view you as not only as a superb poet, but as a superb political poet. You have an intent to, I think, move us to action, and I'm wondering if that is actually part of your goal as a poet, as such an accomplished poet.
Oh, absolutely. I would agree with that characterization completely. In a poem like the one you just heard, the notion is to give politics a human face. Eyes, ears, nose, mouth, a name. The idea is to invoke some sense of shared humanity. And that would hopefully be a motivation to take some action, or at least to feel some empathy when it comes to people like the people in the poem.
I also have a question for you about your way of going about creating poems. Do you sit down every day, or do you wait for this moment when inspiration really does strike?
I don't have the luxury of sitting down every day. I know there are writers who will come before the mic and say, well, I get up every morning at 5 a.m. and I milk the dog, and then I sit down and I write until noon, and anybody who doesn't do that isn't really a writer. Well, anybody who says that is leaving something very important out of the equation. Somebody else is taking care of that person. Somebody else is doing the cooking, somebody else is doing the cleaning, somebody else is doing the driving, somebody else is taking care of the kids, somebody else is taking care of the dog, somebody else is taking care of the bills. You know, that's a luxury that most of us cannot afford, to be such a writer. Most of us are caretakers, whether we happen to be caretakers for our partners or our children or our parents. That sort of scenario is a luxury only a very, very few writers in this country can afford. So my practice, if you want to call it that, is very idiosyncratic. It is catch as catch can, and I recently talked to Lauren about an experience she had teaching adult literacy in Patterson. I was quite struck by the notion of teaching someone who didn't know the alphabet. How do you start? Where do you begin? And how do you deal with the rest of it? And she told me this story, and I started asking certain questions. And she said, "You're going to write a poem about this, aren't you?" And I said, "Can I?" And she said, "Yes." So I did.
Living with a poet. Everything is grist for the mill. I think it's important as well to mention, because as much as Martine is a political poet, and I think that's important, I think that sometimes people overlook the fact that he is also one of our great love poets, and also funny as hell. So I tell everyone that you are in for a treat this Saturday at the Lava Arts Center in Greenfield. You'll hear America's great poet. You'll be able to tell your kids and your grandkids that you actually heard Martine Espada read. You will be moved. You will love it. It's a full day of poetry. We are going to come back right after the break and talk about what you can do in the afternoon. Another great poetry reading in Northampton. My guest is Howie Fairstein. He is here. He will be reading at the Forbes Library that afternoon. You can come see that and then go to Greenfield to have dinner and listen to Martine Espada. Martine, thank you for joining us.
At the Lava Center, 7 o'clock this Saturday, a fundraiser for the Lava Center, which is a really important community space. It'll be a beautiful day, a nice drive up to Greenfield for those coming from the south. Of course, those in Greenfield can just walk over to the Lava Center. It is a wonderful community space that will be filled this Saturday evening by a spectacular poet, Martine Espada. We'll be right back.
Kitchen windows. It's supper time and the patio is dark. No one knows you like I do.